food store.
Today's episode is brought to you by Mary's Roadside Cafe at the corner of Route 3 and County Line Road. On Wednesdays, the patty melt is half price, and on Sundays, depending on how Mary and Ron do at the lake on Saturday, there's usually grilled trout, which they serve with roasted potatoes, the house salad, and sometimes butternut squash. Mary's Roadside Cafe. Good people, great food, and a killer view of the valley. Wow.
New theme music for a new show.
Did you play all the different instruments on that?
You know, I have a Casio thingamajig, and I can do lots of instruments. I need new batteries.
I think that it may be the perfect music for today's episode.
Pretty exciting. I don't know if you want to introduce what the heck we're even doing.
Really
here.
exciting.
It's been a while.
Well, we've been away for a little while, and this season we're embarking on something a little bit different. We're taking a hiatus from the amazing shipwreck tales.
Love the shipwrecks.
Instead, we're going to bow to listener wishes, and we're going to focus on some biographies.
Yes.
We're going to look at some interesting lives, maybe people that either we know who they are, but we don't know, the full story of their lives, or just somebody that's just brand new to you. Today, I think
Interesting.
You're going to say, wait, who?
And I think, well, that's a great lead in to reminding the listeners that each week someone will present a biography and the other person has no idea in advance of who this person is. So that's what makes it fun for everybody.
May I ask you a question? And this relates to last season. I got a little bit of time while you were busy crafting the intro music. I did finally go through some of the emails from last season.
Yes.
And you can be honest, do you ever get the response or comment that people like to fall asleep listening to our podcast?
So you're talking about beyond immediate family, extended family, and friends, and people I know who listen to the show.
There were two separate emails. The first email I read, I was like, oh, that's cute. That's kind of like intimate and we're part of their lives. And then I got another email from somebody else and I was like, wait, so is this just a really boring show? Like people fall asleep.
Like in my family, if you were to have like those circles, like a Venn diagram of who listens to the show and goes to sleep and who listens to the show on repeat and goes to sleep, they wouldn't be overlapping. They would be like, you just see one circle because everyone I know just says, oh, I love to fall asleep to it,
Right.
but I put it on repeat. And so when I wake up, I hear it.
Because I got two different emails with that same point, and I was like, okay, is this a gag?
Maybe
is
both
this a
from my
prank?
family members. Yeah.
This is bringing back a little childhood memory. When I was a child, I remember falling asleep to whatever Larry King's radio show was.
Ah, yes.
And same thing, like I loved the show. I loved, people he interviewed, but it was good for falling
Good
asleep. to.
background noise, not terribly jarring.
You know who was in DC for a second was Howard Stern. He was a DJ in DC.
That is true. And is that a lead in to the biography today? Is it Howard Stern?
It is not Howard Stern.
Cool.
I want to talk to you today about a woman named, I'm going to try to pronounce her name correctly. It's a German name.
Right. First episode, right? You've had a lot of time.
Yeah. So if you and I were looking at it in print, we'd say, oh, Juliana or Julianne.
Works for me.
They seem to say Juliane, and
Pretentious.
at the time of the events in question, her last name was Koepcke. That was her
Koepcke.
birth name. Juliane
Koepcke.
Koepcke.
What kind of name is Koepcke?
German.
German. Okay.
Apparently.
What does it translate to? Koepcke, is it like hat?
I don't know. So I would like to tell you about Juliane Koepcke. Now, nowadays, she is a librarian, and we don't typically do biographies of librarians. No offense to them.
No.
So Juliane Koepcke, her married name is Diller. So today she's Mrs. Diller, and she is a librarian at the Bavarian State Collection for Zoology in Munich.
Okay. So she's still alive. She lives in
She's
Munich.
still alive. She's 68.
Oh, okay.
She describes herself not just as German, but Peruvian. Her parents were
Oh.
German, but
Uh-huh.
she herself was born in Peru. I say, well, how did that come about?
Were her parents Nazis?
Both
No, isn't that where
her
they went
parents.
after?
I don't know. Did they go to Peru? I don't know of any Nazi associations
Okay.
for her parents. I do know that her mother was a noted ornithologist,
Ooh.
and her father
That's the
was
birds,
a
right?
science.
Like studying of
Yeah.
birds? Okay.
The mom knew all about the birds. So supposedly, like the crows and ravens, apparently very smart. Have you seen those studies about how supposedly a crow it will recognize a human face, and then supposedly, like let's just for the hypothetical, you're the mean neighbor that always like fires a gun at
Mhm.
them. They know your face, and supposedly not only do they know your face, but even if you moved away and then the crow subsequently had babies, and then those babies had like somehow the knowledge of your face gets passed on. I don't
What?
know. It seems
But can you
impossible.
imagine if there happened to be like a bunch of crows that just were in your neighborhood and you had to move? It's like, dude, they all know me. I can't live here
Dude.
anymore. They recognize. I've tried, a hat, sunglasses.
Okay, well,
The crows know. Okay.
okay, so Juliane
Juliana.
Koepcke,
Hmm.
Juliane, her mom is an ornithologist. The dad is a scientist as well. He studies both plants and animals. They wind up in Peru, and the father, in fact, as an academic coming from Germany after World War II, it actually is hard, probably for the reasons you already mentioned, to get permission to enter South America, and has
Right.
to
Right.
follow an arduous path to do so. But he and his wife have a lovely life that they've set up for themselves in Lima,
It's the
Peru.
only place I've heard of in Peru.
And they split their time between Lima, which is the big
Yep.
city, and out in the field, out in the
Ah.
jungle
That's the
near.
yin and the yang, right? They have those expertise. Hey, I'm the country mouse during the week. You're the city mouse during the week, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We're city mouse for these 2 months,
Right.
and now we're hardcore country
Yes, I
mice.
like it.
They go out near the village of Pucallpa. That's one of the places they go to. They have a research station out
Sounds
there,
nice.
which is really in the middle of the jungle. The reason I mention this to you is in December of 1971, Dad's already out at the research
Mhm.
station. It's almost Christmas
Mhm.
time. Yuleane, who at that time is 17, and she's grown up in
Right.
Lima,
What year again?
and 1971.
Okay, good.
71, she's 17 years old. She's just graduated from high school in Lima. She and her mom want to fly out into the jungle to spend Christmas with the dad at the research station.
Nice.
They're at the airport in
Mhm.
Lima. It's extremely
Ugh.
crowded. Lots of people trying to get flights to get places
Holidays.
for
Yep.
Christmas. It's holidays. There's a mad crush of people trying to get on this one particular flight. I guess the airline is called
Okay.
Lansa, Lansa.
Okay.
Now, if everything goes correctly, it's not a long flight. I think it's an hour or two from Lima to
Mhm.
Pucallpa. And it starts out in the morning, and Juliane is in the 19th row next to her
Oh, I
mom.
don't like where this is going. Yeah.
Juliane,
We're not doing
huh?
shipwrecks or airplane wrecks, are we? Please. Okay.
We're not doing
Perfect.
shipwrecks.
Keep going.
Juliane is
She
in
doesn't
the
end up eating
19th.
her mother, right? This isn't like that movie Alive with the soccer team, only it's Juliana and her mom?
It has some
Oh,
similarities.
no.
She's in row 19, seat F, right by the window.
If that's one of those seats they say you should sit in, where's your best chances of anyways, go on.
Well, I'll just tell you
Yeah.
this: she was in the right seat, as it turned out.
Okay, good.
She 19F. Her mom is the one who's a nervous flyer, and part of the reason for that is that Lansa, the airline, is not known for the strongest safety record, and in fact,
Mm.
in hindsight, it turns out the father had told them previously, like, yeah, never fly on Lansa,
Oh,
but they did
God.
want to get out there for Christmas. The daughter in particular particular was kind of like, "Yeah, let's do." Well, she wanted to stay for the party after her graduation, so
Should have stayed.
she stays for the party, and then the
Oh.
only flight they can get is this flight out the next day. So it's December 24th, 1971. There's quite a mad crush at the airport. A lot of people trying to get on this flight. It only
Mhm.
fits a total of, I think there's 92 people on board,
Okay.
and they're very excited that they get 2 seats.
Right.
They're about 30 minutes into the flight. They have breakfast, good breakfast.
Nice.
Stewardesses are taking good care of people,
Right.
and they cross the Andes and move
Cool.
toward
Probably great views.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a little bit of turbulence, but that's always
Uh-huh.
the case when you go over
Eh,
the
mountains.
mountains.
Yep.
They do encounter a storm, and it appears to
No.
be fairly intense. Like
Oh,
what's her
God.
name? Juliane says it suddenly looked more like nighttime outside.
Oh.
She's looking out, and while her mother is quite nervous and saying things like, "I hope this all, works out. I hope it'll be okay." The girl, Juliane, on the other hand, doesn't really mind the turbulence. She's just kind of bouncing around and just checking out,
Woohoo!
looking out the
17,
window.
yeah, exactly. Roller coaster. Yay.
Looking out the window when lightning hits the plane.
Oh, God.
And not only and I think lightning does strike planes from time to
Sure.
time, but in this case, it hits the plane and causes catastrophic damage.
Oh.
Plane goes into a nosedive. So
Oh, my
the way
God.
the girl describes it, she said, we're more toward the back. So suddenly I'm looking like straight down onto all the passengers in the rows
Oh,
in front of me.
my goodness.
Like,
Okay.
it's like I'm looking down the side of a building, but I'm looking
Oh,
down into the
wow.
airplane.
Oh, boy.
So
Not
that's bad enough.
This is gonna freak people out.
Then the airplane just comes apart in the air.
Oh,
So all of a
God.
sudden, the way she explains it later, it wasn't that I left the airplane. It was as if the airplane simply left me.
Whoa.
She finds herself, she's still strapped into her seat. It's a bank
Oh,
of
my
3
God.
seats. They're in the air. They're
Right.
roughly 2 miles up in the air, over 10,000 feet
Gosh.
by the
Yeah.
time it comes apart. She's in a bank of 3 seats. Her mother and the woman next to her mother, we don't know what becomes of that. Like, they're not there.
Oh.
She's just strapped into her seat. And it is spinning. It's described as, when you were a kid, did you ever see the little, on maple trees, the little seed pods that sort of look like helicopters going down? They kind of
No.
twirl. Her seat bank is doing that. It's just spinning around really
Oof.
fast and going
Right.
down toward the ground.
Jesus.
And then at a certain point, it flips over. She's going head first
Oh, my
toward
God.
toward the
What?
jungle. And that's the last part of that she remembers.
Okay. First off, what a perfect time to hear from our sponsor because of how suspenseful we just left this. She
Yeah,
enters
so
into the
suspenseful.
jungle potentially upside down.
Yeah.
Is she upside down at this point? Okay.
She's upside down.
So she's upside down. Okay.
And then she passes out.
She passes out and is headed for the jungle,
Yes.
upside down, strapped to her chair.
Fantastic.
Let's leave it there. Let's hear from our new sponsor of
No
Killer
way.
Biographies. Yeah, we got a new one this year, and I'm actually very excited. It's hard to get a sponsor for a brand new show because we don't know anything about the audience. But this particular sponsor liked what they heard in Killer Shipwrecks. They think that the biographies is a great idea.
Wait, who found these guys? You or Lizzie?
I would love to say me. Lizzie took an inbounds. So she didn't solicit them, but they reached out to us. Lizzie managed the whole process, and here we go. So let's say hello to our brand new sponsor of the first season of Killer Biographies, Rapid City Laundry.
Oh, love it.
Spring is here, and so is the mud. But when your favorite clothes get soiled, don't let your day be spoiled. Visit Rapid City Laundry and let their expertise in dry cleaning and laundry services wash your concerns away. A proud member of the International Fabric Care Institute, Rapid City Laundry now offers free pickup and delivery in Ashland Heights, Box Elder, and Somerset. Look for their famous neon sign at 312 West Main Street in downtown Rapid City. And if you mention Killer Biographies, you'll receive 20% off all fluff and fold services. Rapid City Laundry, keeping the Rapid Valley stain-free since 1928. good to hear from Rapid City.
Oh my god, amazing. Is there really a place called Box Elder? I've never heard of Box Elder.
Yeah, there is. It's right outside the city is from what I understand. Like, so it's all within about a 5-mile radius of Rapid City.
Cool.
A Box Elder, beautiful area.
Yeah.
Not if you're going to Spearfish, you'd be going north. This is a little bit more east, so kind of heading into the Badlands. Super great area.
I
But
wish
yes, this is a
yeah.
famous family-owned laundry, in the city. Very well known. That's why I'm not that surprised they wanted to reach out.
I wish I were from Box Elder. That's a cool place to come from.
It's a great name. Great
Yeah.
name to say.
Two more thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, two more thoughts.
Yes.
20%
It is.
off the Fluff and Fold.
Huge.
That's a big price break.
Well, especially because again, they're very well known.
I hope they don't lose money because of all of our listeners. So
It's a family business. They've been doing it since the 20s, since the 1920s, not the 2020s. So they're sort of reaching out to the community. Laundry in the form that they sort of provide is sort of a dying art. These guys know what they're doing.
also our show's gotten a lot funkier. That there was a certain groove to the music that led us out of the
Trying to
commercial.
keep it upbeat, particularly, with the type of story we're hearing today. But we do have both outro music and a new theme song. Very exciting. In terms of exciting, this woman was spinning out of control upside down,
Yeah.
passes out, and is heading into the jungle.
Yeah.
So what the heck? What happens?
She comes to an undetermined amount of time later. She's down in the muck and the mud. She's come crashing through the jungle canopy. It appears that Juliane kind of went in and out of consciousness for the first day or day and a half, where she'd sort of come to and say, oh, I'm alive, but then she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. And then at a certain point, she really does wake up. She's on the jungle floor. She's in a fair amount of pain. She's covered in mud.
So she didn't get tangled up in the trees. She ended up on the ground.
Correct. She,
Wow.
it appears, just based on the fact that she survived and she's alive, that it was cushioned by the trees that she went through and the bush. She landed in some dense shrubbery. She is.
But she didn't land on her feet and start walking away like a movie.
Like I said, goes in and out of consciousness for a while, and she has significant injuries. She has a badly broken collarbone. She has a deep cut to her leg, and she has in the back of one arm she said it's a wound that's not bleeding badly, but it's almost like if you think of a small scooper for ice cream, like if you had scooped out a scoop of it's like an inch deep, but it's not bleeding badly, but it's like a chunk of her arm is gone.
But incredible that she fell from an airplane and is even able to think and walk.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable tale. So she also has a bad concussion. She also already before this was pretty nearsighted, did not have great vision, and unfortunately her glasses are gone.
Oh,
And one eye is swollen almost shut. She also subsequently finds out that I don't know if it's the ACL or the MCL, but she's torn the ligament in one knee.
Right.
There are many weird things about it. One of them is that, you picture surviving a plane crash and it's like, okay.
I don't picture that.
Yeah, you're like.
I picture not surviving a plane crash. That's why I'm so scared of flying.
And you picture smoking wreckage, you picture, that kind of stuff. Like I said, this airplane came apart in the air, so a lot of it spread over a huge distance. So she's not seeing that. She's not seeing the fuselage. She's not at first seeing any other people.
Freaky.
She's just literally sees the bank, the seat bank that she had been part of.
You must be wondering if it was some sort of ejector seat. If she's just still in her chair and there's nothing around her, it's like, wait.
Totally dazed and stunned. Starts to walk around a little bit. She has one sandal. She's just wearing a simple sundress. She has one sandal. She walks around in the immediate vicinity and just doesn't see anybody, doesn't see any wreckage. She is aware. It comes back to her. She's aware, okay, I was in the plane, and it was hit by lightning, and now I'm down here in the rainforest. Now, the good thing about Juliane is she had spent some time with her parents out at the research station in the jungle.
Mhm.
So she's well situated. Like, I would just panic and
Yeah.
start screaming
Yep.
or would have made lots of bad decisions very quickly. She did not do that. She
Right on.
remembers some basic things she had learned in her years growing up going out to this research station. One is that I guess in the rainforest, a lot of it looks the exact same and it's easy to become just totally lost
That makes
or to
sense. Like a desert. Yeah.
walk for
Run in
days and
circles.
days and
Yeah.
find out that you've gone in a circle. When she was little, she remembers somebody, scientists would always visit her parents' research station, which was called Penguana. And she remembers one time a researcher explaining that he had once gotten lost in the jungle. And ultimately, the way that he had found his way back was to find any kind of running water, like a
Ah.
spring or a creek or just anything where water is going in a direction.
Mhm.
And he said, follow that and see if you can just follow it until you get to a river, because rivers tend to be, in the jungle, that's what people are using to travel.
Right.
And so once you get on a river, then you can just follow it and hopefully you come to a village or you see somebody on a boat.
Right.
So that's her plan. I'm going to look for water.
Interesting. Very practical. Which is incidentally also like if you get on a green and a golf course, they always say like find the source of water. That's the way the green will be sloped towards the water.
Really?
That's just I don't know if that's even true. I just remember hearing that.
Probably not directly relevant to Juliane's situation. I don't think there was
I don't know
a.
if she's a golfer. Yeah, I don't know what sports she played when she wasn't surviving airplane crashes. Yeah.
At first, she's not having a ton of luck. She's looking around. Maybe there's some water here. She can't tell it. But then she hears a bird call, which she
Ah, and
recognizes
her mom's an
because her mom's an
ornithologist.
ornithologist. It's called like the bird is called like
Jesus.
Watsine or something. But
Gotta be a movie
she
about this.
knows that this kind of bird does like to congregate near water. She goes in the direction of those bird
No
calls,
way.
does indeed find a creek. She says it's very hard to follow it. She's not always sure, like, does it
Mhm.
go in that direction? Sometimes it kind of goes
Ugh.
underground and she said, plus
Ugh.
I can't see anything.
Ugh. God.
She does start to see little signs.
She saw signs like, this way to the next rest area.
No. Like occasionally she'll see clothing in trees or she'll see
Oh.
a suitcase, that had fallen out of the plane and landed in a tree. Just things that just exploded out of the airplane and were littered over that area. And she does find some hard candy, some like, some that was in a suitcase or in a carry-on or whatever. So she does get a couple pieces of hard candy and she's like, all right, I'll take that.
Right. She deserves some candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's had a bad day and it's like, okay, I've earned it. Like,
Nice.
she takes the candy, she eats one of the pieces, saves the other couple of them, continues to follow the creek. I was interested by this. Like, I would just take off that shoe. You're walking with one shoe, like just get rid of
Right.
that. But she says, no, I mean, it's like I need any kind of protection I can get, especially does get to the creek or then if that's going to lead to a river. They do have not only like caimans, those like crocodile looking things, but they
Ugh.
also have a zillion snakes, including lance-headed
Huh.
vipers, but they also have river stingrays. I did not know that.
Never
She
heard of that.
follows the creek. And the other thing is it's the rainy season. It's raining quite a bit. Also, the jungle gets just pitch black. So like 6 p.m. or she said, I would have to find a place like sheltered place, like maybe a bank of dirt or up against a tree or whatever. I would just, when it started to get dark, I would go and just sort of cuddle up in that place. And she said most of the time it was raining.
Ugh.
And so she's just sleeping in the rain. Juliane walks for 11 days.
Oh my gosh. After surviving a plane crash.
11 days with no food
Oh
except
my
for like
gosh.
2 or 3 pieces of hard candy.
Unbelievable. This is insane. This seems impossible.
Yeah, drinking from the muddy river.
Boiling it? Does she know how to make a fire? Because, you shouldn't drink the water without boiling it.
Yeah, but it's the rainy season. So she
Oh,
said, my dad
shit.
had
It's like,
taught me how to make a fire. But for one thing, I can barely see in front of myself.
right.
For another thing, everything in the jungle is completely wet.
Ugh.
So
Yeah, that's
she's
not
not
happening.
boiling any water.
Right.
And she knows that she's running the risk of getting some illnesses, but
Right.
it's desperate times.
Right.
By the 11th day, she's like, when you go without food for that long, it's not like you're starving. It's more like you have no energy and you just want to go to sleep.
Right. Oh
Not
my
only
gosh.
that big chunk out of the
Ugh.
back of her arm has become infested with maggots.
Ah.
It was painful,
I'm
and
sure.
she'd try to pull them out, but,
Ugh.
they just burrow deeper in. She also says, the insect life is quite unpleasant. You're just
Yeah.
constantly getting stung by stuff. However, on the 11th day, following along a river, she comes upon what looks like a very rudimentary deserted camp, like work camp
Mm.
in the jungle. Nobody's there,
Right.
but it's like a little sort of makeshift tent. And more importantly, there's a can that has some gasoline.
Mm.
She knows that the gasoline is one way to flush maggots out of a
Oof.
wound.
Jeez. Ugh.
So she drips it into the wound and starts pulling out
Ugh.
the maggots. And she gets, I think, like 30 of
Okay.
them,
We don't have to
but
count.
can't get all of them.
Right.
Passes out at the camp. There's no food at the
Ugh.
camp. And then eventually two guys, I guess the next day, like the 12th day or something,
Mhm.
she hears noise and it's two guys coming back to this camp. And they're terrified when they see her. She doesn't know this, but her eyes, there was some
Mhm.
injury that caused both of her eyes to be just completely like full of blood. Like the
Ugh.
white part is just red.
Ugh.
So these guys think she's, I forget what the name of it is, but like the goddess of the river, like some sort
Oh
of
my god, like a creature.
demon or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So one of them's screaming, one of them goes
Oh
running,
my
the other
god.
one's like, kind of screaming or
Right.
trying to ward her away with it. But she speaks some Spanish and she explains
Like, does she
what
show them her
happened.
boarding pass? Like, no, I was on a flight. This is not what it seems.
She says, I was in the plane that came down and these guys cannot believe
I
it.
mean, who would believe this? This is insane. I don't believe this.
Because here's the thing. This plane now went down 11 days ago. And in the meantime, while this girl's been on her little odyssey through the jungle, two problems. Where the plane went down, nobody has any idea. Like they're searching from above in the air, but it's just a jungle
Right.
canopy down there.
Impossible. Yeah.
Plus the plane had exploded into a million parts. And of the 92 people who were on board, there was a grand total of one who survived it.
Unbelievable.
Juliane. None of the other people survived, including her mother.
Ugh.
So this guy can't believe. The one who doesn't go running away from her
Mhm.
at the sight of her bloodshot
Yeah.
eyes springs into action.
Right.
And he does a little bit more work on the wound. He gets her in a boat and takes her to the nearest village. And then
Wow.
from that village, they send word ahead to, wherever the hospital is. And once the news starts to filter out, it becomes worldwide news that somebody survived that accident.
Unbelievable. Someone survives a plane crash. I mean, that's insane.
Because the girl herself was, she's still in the rainforest getting medical care. There were all sorts of crazy stories
Right.
about how she survived. She fashioned a raft out of sticks and leaves. She,
Right.
did such and such. None of it, is all untrue. She
Mhm.
has hepatitis also by this point from drinking the
Oh.
river water.
Right. Yeah, see? You gotta boil it. That's what I was saying. Shoulda boiled it.
She eventually gets reunited with her father. The other thing that happens is, when news spreads that she's alive, it kind of
The dad must have completely been taken, like,
well, no,
floored.
but not when the word spread that she was alive, that somebody had survived, all the rescue teams went rushing back into the jungle because all of the families of the other people said, "Oh, so it was possible to survive. There's probably other people in the
Oh.
jungle who are still alive." They kind of eventually start to get closer to the wreckage, and they realize nobody's alive. All these people are dead. Now, it does appear a handful of the people may have been alive for a while afterwards, for hours or maybe a
Oh,
day
really?
or two, but no, Juliane is the only one who survives.
Unbelievable. This is crazy.
During those 11 days, at one point, she does come upon a bank of 3 seats that has landed in the mud and with such force that it's submerged. She can just see the feet of
Mhm.
two of the three
Oh,
passengers of
God.
one of them's a woman's feet, and she gets sick to her stomach because she thinks, is that my mother?
Oh, no.
But she checks, and the woman, the feet she's looking at have nail polish, and she knows her mother never
Oh.
painted her nails.
Oh, boy.
You know, she's just in a daze. But while she's walking through the forest and she's saying, if I survive this, if I get back and get to live a life as an adult,
I will never get that nail polish color.
I want to do something with my life. She's already thinking that as a 17-year-old
Wow.
in the jungle. She has this feeling like, I can't believe I'm alive. I need to do something valuable. Let's see, what does she say in her book? She eventually writes a book, and I'm going to read to you what she says.
And what does she go on to do? Like, what is her, what becomes her field?
Slow down,
Sorry.
cowboy. Okay, she says, on those rainy nights, I now think that it would be great to devote my life to something big, something important, something that would benefit humanity and nature. What that might be, I have no idea. I just feel that my life from now on should have meaning in the fabric of the world, for it has to mean something that I fell out of an airplane and walked away from it with only a few scrapes.
Unbelievable. It's that's just miraculous. It makes no sense.
I feel bad for the girl because, you know, as horrendous as all this is, you know, losing her mother and, oh God, another thing she sees in the jungle,
Uh-oh.
which I didn't even know they had down there, but
Why do I have a feeling no one wants to hear this? But go on.
these like Mongo-sized spiders. Have you ever heard of them? They're like a foot
No.
across.
What?
They're called bird-eating spiders.
Oh,
And
yeah. No.
she sees those things, and the thing's very close to her. She's by the time she becomes aware of it, because she doesn't have good vision, just one eye, and without her glasses, the thing is very close to
No,
her.
we're trusting someone to tell us it was a foot and she can't see. So, like, maybe this was actually more like an inch.
No, she knows that this girl. Are you kidding me? She knows the
Wow.
species. It's like
Incredible.
I forget. It's called like the Goliath bird-eating
Right.
spider or something. I don't know. It's
But
some
in a way
massive.
helpful that it wasn't some tiny spider because she wouldn't have seen that, right?
When you read her account, you're amazed at her composure in the situation. I mean, just her awareness of a lot of people later, when they interviewed her, they said, well, you know, they would always describe it as the green
Right.
hell where this little German girl landed. She said, right from the get-go, I did not have that feeling. I had the feeling that the jungle had saved my life.
Interesting.
That
Yeah.
the net, the canopy of trees had cushioned my fall, and that the river water had kept me alive,
Right. Cup half
and that
full.
my
Yeah.
knowledge of the different animals that lived there, you know, like knowing the call of that one particular bird led
Right.
me to water. So she said,
Great, but let's not have the big spiders anymore.
yeah.
I'm not going to dedicate my life to keeping those guys happy. You know what I mean?
There's this one viper she describes. It sounds like a gnarly snake also. But anyway, I feel bad for the girl in hindsight, because once she does get to civilization and she gets the medical care and stuff, back then they really did not, at least in relation to her, have a sophisticated understanding of PTSD, of mental health. So for one thing, the world media just
Right.
descends on her.
Ugh.
Everybody wants to interview her. And they're doing things like pretending to be medical professionals at the
Oh,
hospital
boy.
and sneaking in to try to interview her. When she finally does sit for some formal interviews, like with the Stern magazine from Germany, you know, the reporters get it wrong and they sensationalize it. So, you know, she sits for the formal interview. They do the story, but after it comes
Yeah,
out, she
right.
even gets criticized. People are like, oh, so this little girl just runs away from the crash. You know, there were probably there people around who were, you know, who were suffering or could have used her help, or she could have fed them or could have down there, you know. And she, in the book, she later writes, she said, I did not see a single you know, I walked 3 days before I ran across a corpse. It's
Ugh.
really unpleasant. The entire world wants to know her story, and they want her to do interviews. And then even when she does do the interview with the German magazine, it doesn't end anywhere she goes. When she arrives in Lima,
Right.
you know, her the house where she and her dad live is just totally besieged with reporters. The dad eventually winds up sending her to Germany, thinking like, okay, you know, I have relatives there. She can, you know, she's already graduated from high school here. She can do university there and sort of put this behind her. It's Just the same thing in
Oof.
Germany. As soon as she arrives at the airport, just journalists all over the place. She's famous at the school.
Oh,
And she
horrible. Like, this
doesn't,
is terrible.
they hadn't realized quite yet that she had hepatitis. So she starts university or whatever back in
Right.
Germany, has to drop out within a few
Of
weeks because
course,
she's
yeah.
having all kinds of health problems.
Ugh.
And the other thing is, she really is feeling intense survivor guilt. Like, why did she's remembering other people that were on the flight, like, young kids, and,
Right.
why did I live and my mom didn't? And the dad sounds like, I'll just put it this way. It's not, what a psychiatrist nowadays would have counseled for a
Right.
parent to do. He seems to, he really wants to quiz her. Why did you guys get on a Lanza flight? Like, I've always said, don't get on a Lanza
Right.
flight. And it's apparent that he thinks it's sort of like that the girl had
Ugh.
wanted to both attend the high school graduation party.
Ugh.
Like, he just can't let it go. And he also is obsessed with the idea that, like, his wife actually did survive the
Right, that's
crash,
good.
and maybe she's actually still alive out there. The one good thing he does is he sends her away to Germany, because it sounds like he was
Yeah.
a little toxic and he was a little obsessed. I mean, I say toxic. Look, he was
Yeah,
grieving
that
the
sounds good.
loss of his wife, but he was doing it in a kind of dark way. Anyway, she goes to Germany. She studies zoology. She is interested in the jungle.
Oh,
She
that's
is
cool.
interested in
Yeah,
the rainforest. She's interested in
yeah.
science. Writes a thesis or something on butterflies. She knows the butterflies very well from back at the research station.
Seems like an appropriate focus, right? Like something positive, like, butterflies. You know what? That's what my life's gonna be about.
Butterflies, cheerful. She thinks that she has kind of moved on, and she then gets her dissertation. She writes about bats, about vampire bats in the rainforest. She goes back and forth between Germany and Peru a few times, and she thinks that everything's fine, but she kind of has intense headaches for the rest of her life, and she's not sure what exactly has caused that. She also, actually, as time goes on, has sort of increasing trouble with flying and more fear around airplanes. And
I'm not a doctor. Obviously, I'm not equipped to diagnose anything, but I'd say if she developed a healthy fear of flying and, has had some headaches, like, to me, you just tie that back to the fact that she was in a plane crash, right? Like, I don't think we need to go to a psychiatrist. Like, I think this, hey, text me. I'll let you know.
fell 2 miles out of the sky.
Yeah, lost my mom on a plane crash, almost died in a plane crash, survived. It's like, I'm scared of flying.
She's like one of these gung ho Germanic, I don't know, I'm going to soldier through it. She's like, look, I love the jungle, and Peru is my home. So I'm going to keep going back and forth, and I'm still going to go out to that research station. And
Or but maybe compromise, I'm not gonna fly that cheap airlines anymore. I'm gonna go with the better airline.
yeah, I think that airlines either goes out of business or,
Loses a lot of customers, yeah,
yeah, she's never getting on that one again.
that would not be.
But she is there are some signs that while she feels she's moved on from it because she didn't do like therapy, or she never really got a protracted period to just sit and do nothing and rest up and really fully heal, there are signs that, whether it's the headaches or the panic attacks on the airplanes, that she hasn't totally fully come to terms with it. This is around the time that the famous movie director Werner Herzog
Oh, no way.
contacts her. He's a
Yes.
German film director. And he says, I've been obsessed with your story. I've followed it for years. And he sort of initiates a conversation with her. And he knows that maybe she tells him right off the bat, listen, I just feel like I've been burned a million times before telling my story.
Doesn't wanna keep
Yeah,
revisiting.
it's not even just revisiting. It's like nobody ever gets it right. Or even when I try to tell my story correctly, people say, well, why didn't she stick around and try to save people? Or, there's also a feeling that just because of her personality or the way she processes trauma, she didn't do all the stereotypical things. Like, she's not weeping during the interviews, and she's very kind of matter of fact. And I think some people felt like she isn't grieving openly or publicly or appropriately. Or anyway, she winds up feeling burned by any journalistic coverage of the story. But Werner Herzog has a big name, especially for Germans, and he says, says, I want to do a documentary and I want to give you a chance to just tell the story in your own words. And I want to go back there with you. I want to see the plane, that I almost died on and that these, 91 people died on. And I want to talk to you about what you think, not only how has it affected your life, but what you think it means in the grand scheme of things to be the one person,
Right.
Anyway, he talks her into it. And
No way.
yeah, and the movie is called Wings of Hope. You can go onto YouTube and watch it. And
What year was the movie made?
it was made sort of end of the 90s. I think it's 20, almost 30 years after the crash,
Wow. Is it a great movie?
I don't know. To me, it's fascinating just because the underlying story is fascinating, but there are some things about it that are a little annoying. At the beginning, he just keeps talking about, hey, we probably even bumped into each other at the airport that day. We don't really care about what your experience was that day. We want to hear about the
Right.
girl that, fell 10,000 feet from the sky. But
Jeez.
that said, the reason I tell all this is she dates that process of making that movie as sort of the beginning of the psychological healing that had not really fully taken place in the intervening year.
Okay.
There's other things about it that I find off-putting. He says, we're going to take a flight out to that village. We're going to fly the same, flight path that you flew that day. You're going to sit in row 19, seat F. It's stuff that feels like designed to
That's a little
trigger
contrived,
her.
yeah.
But she puts up with it, and she says, she actually
He doesn't end up screaming, "Why didn't you save your mother?"
no, from her point of view, she finds him actually to be a sympathetic listener and to ask smart questions. And she has a lot of fear. By this point, she's met a scientist named Eric Diller, a German man
Hello.
who specializes in parasitic wasps.
Mm.
Yeah. And her specialty by this point is bats, especially vampire bats.
The Odd Couple.
Yeah. And he is her rock. She brings him along and they do, go to the site of
Ooh,
they find some of the biggest pieces of the crash. And,
unbelievable.
it's still in pretty good shape. I mean, you can read the lettering on the side of the plane, and there's still
Wow.
the colors from the fuselage, the paint on the outside have all survived.
Right.
And there's even, at one point she's in a village and she goes by a little roadside stand where a woman's selling fruit or a hot drink or something. And she realizes that this woman somehow has gotten her hands on the door to the airplane.
Oh my gosh.
They had set up the door, and the name of the roadside stand is Juliane's door. And so, and she's like, it's very weird to be getting my empanada or whatever at this, and there's the door that we walked through to get onto that plane. But she says, that making that movie is the beginning of feeling like she can take back control of the narrative and start to tell people not only exactly what happened during the 11 days she's walking through the jungle, but also what the intervening years felt like and what it felt like to survive, but to lose her mother and to be sort of famous worldwide. I mean, she was getting bags and bags of mail. And, it's people from around the world who either want to marry her or who want to ask her questions about, different animals that she saw on her. I mean, just bags and bags of mail. So she does the movie with him. It's worth checking out, Wings of Hope. And then 10 years after that, feeling sort of empowered by that process, she sits down and writes her book. And it really is an excellent book. I will send you my copy. It's called When I Fell from the Sky.
Appropriate title. That is right on the nose. That's very precise.
Don't know how to say it in German, but it really hops right off the page in English. When I Fell from the Sky. And her narrative voice is excellent. Again, very matter of fact, all about the science, all about, I don't know, it's not an emotional, florid account. It's more just this unbelievable thing happened to me, and I'm going to take you through it, step by step.
Well, it's mixing the tragic and the heroic. I mean, the tragic plane crash, but then the heroic effort to save yourself.
Absolutely. She then, for the rest of her professional life as a scientist, she goes back and forth between Peru and Germany. One of the things that becomes important to her is to preserve her parents' legacy and keep their little research station out in the jungle running. And one of
Nice.
the ways she needs to do it is that
I'm tapped out right now. Is this becoming a fundraising? Are you asking for money?
she gets a bakery. She gets a massive bakery in Germany.
Oh, I'll buy anything from the bakery.
Okay.
I love baked goods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pitch in, they get interested in her story, and they partner with her to, I guess in that part of Peru, they have the same problem that we hear about in Brazil of deforestation, people cutting down rainforest, and she's very eager to make sure that that not happen. So this bakery partners with her, and they wind up, I think, when her parents were operating the place, it was like 400 acres, but by now it's up to like 4,000 or 40,000 or something like that. It's massive now, and it has been designated a nature reserve, so it has some level of
That's so
protection.
cool. Yeah.
Her big story is that she's a like fierce advocate for the rainforest, and that it is the so-called lungs of the world, and that for every acre of rainforest that we lose to people clear cutting it or burning it down or trying to create pasture for cattle, we not only release a ton of carbon into the environment, but we also lose all the great things that the diverse landscape provides us. So
I'm assuming, like in honor of her wishes in the forest, that you were listening to the audiobook.
no, I read on dead trees.
That means like two trees. That's like knifing her in the lung. Like it's like
She she has the real missionary zeal about the importance of the rainforest. She goes there all the time, and now she says, she doesn't really, the fear of flying has started to recede. And she credits both Werner Herzog and then also the process of writing her book, where she's really come to terms with what happened and feels like she can now sort of live with the fact that she's the one person out of 92 who lived for some reason. Just an incredible woman, so impressive.
Incredible. Like you'd think that would be it. Like just write your story and then you don't have to work anymore. Like she went on to do so much.
And, the challenge, she said, especially toward the end, right before she did find the deserted camp, was that she just, as I said, she wasn't starving, but she just felt like going to sleep. She was starting to get to the point of like, what's the point? I'm probably hundreds of miles from anybody. Why go on? And so that's what she was really struggling with by the end. She wanted to just lie down and go to sleep and sort of give in. And then it was just by providence, that's when she, finds the deserted camp. I mean, and then also just the freaking gutsiness of like, oh, good, they have gasoline here. I can pour it in my open wound to get the maggots to start to crawl out of my arm. What a life. Can you imagine surviving
No,
that?
I'm telling you, I can't.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow.
She is 68. She'll be 69 this year. So that was in 71. That was roughly just a little over 50 years ago.
And it's Juliane Koepcke, or can you pronounce her name?
Yeah, Juliane Koepcke Diller. You and I both have a friend who recently was knighted by the French government.
Yes.
Dr. Maurice Samuels became a chevalier.
Incredible.
The reason I mention it is this Koepcke lady, she's like a bit of a hero in Peru, and she got...
Has she been knighted though?
Yeah, she got whatever their equivalent of, like she got some kind of fancy like medal, and then you go to a ceremony and everybody claps.
Lapels,
yeah, there was a time, and then I'll wrap up. I know we're running long.
We don't have two sponsors.
But there was a time where Peru was a dangerous place to visit. They had the Shining Path guerrillas, and then they also had some other kind of guerrilla sort of insurgency. So they had some violence for a while, especially in the 80s and early 90s. She kept going to the jungle, and one thing that she was very good at doing is there was also some weird folklore out there in the jungle where some of the indigenous people had some strange beliefs about what that there was some sort of like mythical blonde-headed creature that would,
Ooh.
do horrible things or would suck the life force out of you or whatever. She became like in the area where she would visit like a real force for education. She said, not only have we expanded this nature reserve and made it bigger, and not only are we going to attract famous scientists from around the world, we're also going to constantly get as many Peruvians and school kids and things like that out here where we can explain to them the
Right.
jewel that they have in the rainforest and where they can also see Germans up
Yeah.
close, blonde people up close, and realize like, no, we're not here to suck their souls out of their bodies or whatever the folklore was. So just an incredible woman.
Phenomenal. I mean, I can't wait to watch the movie. I'm going to obviously do a little bit of internet sleuthing as well, because what an insane story.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It's really unbelievable. Great story. What a way to kick off the season.
Thank
Incredible.
you. Totally my pleasure. And I would say, it occurred to me, it's like you can do a biography about like a famous person who did a million good things, or you can do a biography about a lesser known person who did one amazing thing. I would put this into that category of like, yeah, nobody knows who Juliane Koepcke
No, I had
is,
never heard of her.
but get a load of this. Fell out of an airplane.
Incredible to survive an airplane crash, but then also incredible to accomplish what she did independent of surviving the airplane crash.
Years later, she and her husband are living in an apartment in Germany somewhere. And I guess even when she's in Germany, she likes to try to keep her connection to the jungle. And one of the ways she does
Yes.
that is on the roof. She had built a quite elaborate and abundant sort of plant nursery up there. So a handyman comes over and he goes to do some work on the building. And he's like, what the hell? And then he bumps into her husband on the way out and he says, it's okay. I talked to the landlord. I know. Wife crashed, needs jungle.
Oh, it's jungle. That sums it
Yeah.
up. I don't know if that's a haiku or just a guy with a saying, but it's
The guy who barely speaks any German.
right. Well, fantastic first episode, Killer Biographies. Super excited. You set a very high bar, and I'm a little nervous.
No,
now.
don't be nervous. Thank you for the opportunity. Great job with the intro music. Also, fantastic to get the Rapid City laundry people.
We're all about cleanliness, so we're big supporters.
Those sound like cool people.
Good people. All right, well, Dr. Troyer, again, congrats on kicking off season 1 of Killer Biographies. I'm going to play our new outro music, and we'll see you next week.
Can't wait.